people often say the credit to the private sector is usually low, and therefore any hike in MPR may not have any significant impact on access to credit for SM. But that's again a wrong notion, and that's because even the informal sector, people in the informal sector are also watching. Okay, if I'm going to give you a loan today, I'm also going to take into cognizance the fact that interest rates are going up. So even cooperative societies too will be basing their credit facility on benchmarking on the MPR. Okay. A lot of loans today, even in the informal sector, are benchmarked on the MPR. They tell you MPR plus 3 or MPR plus 5%. So once MPR moves up, it goes up. So it doesn't have to be the one that coming from the banks. Okay, and even with respect to banks, today what you find is that banks will quickly write their customers, repricing their loans, automatically, and you find that transmitting, all through, the economy. Okay, yes. You see, I also want to respond. Yes, peer countries. Yes, I cited Egypt. Egypt started a program in 2016, just as I mentioned. In November 2016, okay, Egypt floated the Egyptian pounds. Okay, so following an IMF advice. At that time, I recall, Egypt got $3 billion, the first tranche of a $12 billion program, they entered with the IMF. Now, the question is, since 2016, I've been following the story of Egypt. Since 2016 up to now, okay, I go and check, has Egypt recovered? Okay, at the time they did that, $1 was 8 Egyptian dollar. $1 was 8 Egyptian pound.
Okay.
All right. So as soon as that was done, it moved to 19 Egyptian pound. Today, what is the exchange rate? You have 40 Egyptian pound, 39 Egyptian pounds to $1. Okay. If you look at the inflation rate trajectory, the same story. So in spite of all that they did, trying to follow the IMF this thing, okay, they are still where they are today. Today, what they're doing now is to they have resorted to asset sell. The $24 billion, said UAE gave, it was in exchange for Egypt sold their land, a city, entire city, to UAE. Okay, so that's what they're doing now to be able to recover, in spite of the assistance they're even getting from IMF and the rest of them. So it's not about moving the MPR by their policy rate by 6%. Okay, even if you use that as you want to make that comparison, the question is, what about the other policy parameters? What is Egypt's cash reserve requirement? Egypt cash reserve requirement, if you check South Africa cash reserve requirement is 2.5%. In Egypt, I think it's about 4.3. Egypt, Kenya, in that range. In Nigeria, what's our cash reserve requirement? 45%. You know what cash reserve requirement is? Sterilized, bank deposits. Okay, so you raise cash reserve requirements by as high as 45%. Okay, you know that what that does to ability of banks to make credit. Okay, that of Ghana, for example, is 15%. The highest I've seen is Turkey, 25%. So ours is unduly high, at 45%. So you are looking at the whole, basket.
Okay.
You have a relatively high MPR policy rate. You also have high CRR. And the CRR, what has it done now? Okay, if you notice, in recent time, the standing lending window of the central bank is now pressured. Banks are now going to borrow money from the central bank. Okay, so, and look at it now. Central bank has raised MPR 24.75%. The standing lending rate is actually 24.75 plus 1%, which is the corridor. So that's 25.75%. So the banks are now going to borrow at 25.75%. Okay, and central bank has also by the last meeting, is also encouraging them to also come and pack funds with them. And that's why they narrowed the corridor again to -3. So if they put funds with the central bank, they get about 21 0.75%.
Okay.
So again, that's encouraging. You want to suck out liquidity, by all means at all costs. I'm not against that. What I'm saying is they should also resort to other tools,
okay,
like the OMO, for example.
Okay.
Because if you use MPR, if over rely on MPR, it has this it has the tendency to distort a lot of things, in the economy. That's my point.
Okay.
There are other tools the central bank can use to further, tighten monetary policy outside of the MPR. Yes.
Okay, let's look at the pattern of international trade. How is it impacting on Nigeria's forex and economy in general? Because there have been change in pattern of international trade. How do you think it's impacting on our economy?
We talk about international trade. The question is, what do we exchange with the rest of the world?
Okay.
It's basically, unfortunately, we remain a monoproduct economy. It's basically crude oil. Okay, and that's also why you find that over 90% of our forex, comes from crude oil sales. So, speaking to the need to diversify, I know it's a medium to long-term thing, and I'm saying a high interest rate environment will not encourage diversification, because you're talking of production. You have to produce to be able to exchange. Okay, yes, people argue monetary policies are short-term, fiscal. These ones are medium to long-term. I agree, but you need to at least begin to put that environment, in place that will, encourage productive activity. Okay, the way it is going now, we are saying up to the end of the year, rates will be high up to the end of the year, but you end up to discovering that it may exceed 1 year. Yes, it's usually difficult to define what is short term and what is medium term. It's usually difficult. When you say in the short term this will happen, what is that short term? Okay, that in the medium to long term it will be fine. What is that medium to long term? Is in the long run we are all dead. Okay, that's why if you're also making decision, okay, with the short term, also have recourse to what is also possible on the fiscal side within that time frame.
Okay.
Because this idea of saying let's get hold of rates, let's force down inflation, and then you see that sequence may not work that way, and I'm saying it may not work that way because of the structural rigidities we have in the economy. We have a peculiar economy where, as I said earlier on, as I argued earlier on, supply side factors, cost push factors are dominant or tend to dominate even the what we refer to as monetary factors. Somebody may disagree and say central bank has superior data. Yes, I'm not contesting that. The central bank has superior data, but there is also a fact, okay, that the supply side factors, cost push factors, are significant when it comes to inflation drivers in Nigeria.